Hey there guys, DMO73 here, bringing you kind of a fun feature match for this week, a fun kind of exhibition. This is actually between myself and Alex Blandon of Team Outerworld. We are actually playing the card-for-card rematch of our top 8 match from AGP Collinsville. We never got to finish the match just because of what was going on with everything that happened there that pushed me to top 4. So we decided I thought it'd be fun to kind of show what would have happened if we'd actually finished playing. So we're finishing out the match here. We're gonna play the match. He is on the play, so it's an exact same situation that we dealt with at Illinois. And the main boards and sideboards for these decks are exactly 100% the same that we used for that event. And you can actually check out those deck lists out on the Outerworld's website, which is linked down below, is in the description. So huge thanks to Outerworld for sitting down, Alex for being willing to sit down and do this at Gen Con. So he is playing Shion, by the way. He likes to keep his ruler kind of to the side. So it is Shion versus Reflect Refrain, just as a heads up. So right off the top, he calls that Hydromonica and gets the Black Moon's Memoria, then scorns my hand. He sees that I have a Rook Egg and a Guinevere. I also have Levitine, Barrier of Shadows, and a Orb of Illusion. So kind of a hard thing for him to grab, but he does grab the Gwen. He doesn't want me getting those Necromancies to the grave, so that's probably the best call. Passes the turn to me. I draw. I'm gonna go ahead and filter, see if I can maybe get into a Gwen or something early enough. No such luck. Decide to ship away the Flame Sprite. Out comes the Orb of the Change the World and a Rook Egg with a Levitine as well, and I pass the turn. So the reason why I shipped the Flame Sprite instead of keeping it, maybe just going aggressive, is because I didn't want to get punished by Soul Hunt. He does run Soul Hunt in the deck, and I didn't want it to be as damaging. If I play a Rook Egg, Soul Hunt isn't as effective for him, as I'm going to be able to still search out a card and everything else, and so it's not as much advantage gained from a Soul Hunt. So he plays the Hera and pops my Orb. I get a counter on my Reflect before that happens. Just drawing for the Hera. And then before my upkeep, I'm going to sacrifice the Rook Egg to my Levitine so I can start getting a search out. So Lancelot is in the house. Hit that Ruler's Memoria. I'm going to go ahead and filter. Let's reflect. I decided to accept some damage for a little bit, and I get the Barrier of Shadows out there. It's because I don't really... Barrier of Shadows plus Horn of the Sacred Beast was kind of like my answer back at Collinsville to Shion decks, and it played really well. And I know that I can kind of accept a little bit of damage from that Hera up front since I have the Lance. That little transition you see there, we had a little bit of an issue that we had to resolve, and so that was us stepping away from the table real quick. But now we're back. We're still in the process of resolving the Barrier of Shadows. So he shipped one away, and then he ditched a Hydromonica to draw the next card before, for free, before everything happened. So there comes out my Horn of the Sacred Beast. So like I said, I'm feeling okay here. Having a Barrier of Shadows and a Horn of Sacred Beast was my essential answer to Shion decks, being able to mess up their flip back, be able to make their ability to filter cards much more expensive. Comes up the Death Sight. That's where I take that 500 damage from the Hera. Passes to me. Pay 2 for the Lancelot. Moving to combat, I start to think about killing the Hera, but I go for his face instead. I don't want to get hit by his space-time anomaly and get punished and lose my Lancelot and not kill his Hera, so I'd rather get some damage in. And then I'm going to go ahead and stack an untapped trigger with Reflect. So this is so that I have a Lancelot who is ready to go to block next turn. Because then, even if he does have the space-time anomaly next turn, if I go to block, I kind of force him to use it to keep his Hera alive. And then I still have the block. So he's out some will moving into my turn, and I didn't take any damage. So I might have lost the Lancelot, but I still cost him resources, which I'm okay with. There's Matt Hawkins. He decided to be silly and interrupt. Owner of Barcadia Gaming. Gen Con was a really cool event. You get to see a lot of the big name players all just kind of hanging out. So that was fun. So he paid 1 to ship a card before upkeep, or before draw. He draws for turn. Calls for another stone, hits another Black Moon's Memoria. Trying to decide what he wants to do here. He does have another Hera in hand. The Blessed Holy Wolf comes out to pop the barrier, so that helps him a lot. He's deciding how he wants to manage his resources here. Plays a Lave Seed and passes the turn. So I'm going to draw. During the upkeep, I'm going to pump up Lancelot for another 100 damage. Using that red that I have available before the upkeep. I decide to play Flame King Shout here and bring out a second Lancelot. Move into combat. We go 6 in his face. Block with the Blessed Holy Wolf. Play the Flames Right with the remaining low. Ping the Hera for the last damage that I need. And then swing in for 7 at Alex's face. Taking him down to 27. I'm going to stack an untapped trigger on him and pass the turn. So I'm sitting with no hand and lots of creatures on board, and I do have an answer for him to be able to mess with his flip. He's going to go ahead and Dark Purge the Lancelot that is recovered, so just automatically killing it, giving it -6/-6. He doesn't have the he doesn't have the, I don't have the barrier anymore, so he can do all of his, flipping and everything else for free. He hits that Ruler's Memoria. Looks like he's got a Earther and something else. The problem with Necrolance in this matchup is that it slowly kind of starts to run out of steam. Especially since I didn't open up with any necromancies or anything else like that. Lancelot is not nearly as effective in this matchup without being able to consistently burn stuff. And having that +2/+2 keeps it safe from things like Dark Purge and Space-Time Anomaly. And I just did not see it at all in these games. So that was pretty unfortunate. So my problem now is I have to punch through that last little bit of damage, but we're getting to the point where Alex's deck really starts to gain advantage because of the fact that it has its flip. It's starting to be able to hard cast things like Celestial Wing Seraph and stuff like that, which becomes a problem for me massively. So my advantage is early game, and his advantage is mid to late game, which is a problem because every single turn that we play pushes it more in his favor. So you saw that I used my Horn of the Sacred Beast on the Uther, and honestly could have probably just accepted the hit there for whatever he was going to ping with Uther. I'm going to pump up Lancelot, +2 for 200 attack. Attack, targeting Uther. I'm gonna pump up with Reflect, so it'll be 1,000 damage and a 700 point burn at Uther. He's gonna go ahead and he's thinking about whether or not that's gonna happen or not. Says that's okay, and I'm gonna ping it for 100 damage with Flame Sprite too. And then he's gonna take the 1,000 damage, and then I'm gonna flip and Reflect to hopefully see if I can. So moving into his turn, he's gonna be able to make a pretty strong play here. He's gonna go ahead and pay the 1 to stack. And the stack is just gonna be Celestial Wing Seraph. It's the most powerful thing that he can get off the top, off of a Shion flip, which is probably what's gonna happen. I can't respond to any of it, so we're kind of shortcutting here, just because the two of us we know each other. We're kind of hanging out, and I know exactly what he's gonna be doing. So he's gonna be flipping over with Shion, flipping into Celestial Wing Seraph, and then getting a Lucifer. And there's nothing I can do to stop any of that or prevent him from getting the maximum value out of it. So that's why you see us kind of shortcutting here. He's going to bring Shion out onto the field here in a second. So this is the big play from Shion, and he's actually in a really good shape here because he's got the swiftness from Shion, which is going to be able to kill Lancelot. I should have just let him kill Lancelot here. That was my mistake. Instead, I decided to waste some waste some of my counters, and make that play. So go ahead and play the Hera for the orb, and in response, I'm going to add a counter. Which what I should have done is removed a counter and recovered, but I added a counter instead. So I still have Lancelot in hand. I'm staring down an almost insurmountable board at this point. It's very hard for me to catch up, especially since I haven't seen any of my necromancies or anything else like that. So this was the moment where I would just say that Necrolance has run out of steam. It's pretty much the best way to put it. Out comes the Necrolance, out comes the Lancelot, not even a Necrolance. We're gonna pump it for 200 attack. Swing at 10 at his face and targeting Celestial Wing Seraph for the burn damage. The reason why is I don't want the Celestial Wing Seraph to be what gets to block, so I kind of want to punish him. I could just target the Hera, which would be a guaranteed 2-for-1, but I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to be good kind of whatever happens. So he's going to block. I'm going to Demon Flame the Celestial Wing Seraph and kill kill the Hera in the block. So I still get 2 creatures out of it. I could have also just Demon Flamed the Hera in response to the block, so that I get to get the 1,000 damage at his face. But at that point, it wouldn't have mattered, because I would have been staring down a lot of damage, pretty much lethal, from Alex with no way to block it. So I had to get those creatures off the board. So tapped me out, but I make it happen. So he swings at Lancelot, and then in response to the lifelink effect, I'm going to sacrifice Lancelot to the... in response to him paying the activate for the lifelink effect, I'm going to sacrifice to Lancelot, or to Levitine, so that he doesn't get the life gain. And then I'm going to take the 1300 from Shion for the different taps. I draw. He's got 3 open. I play 1 to play Rook Egg. Immediately sacrifice it to Levitine. To get myself a Priscia. My thought is with the Priscia, I can pump it up and kill the Lucifer, but really doesn't matter at this point, because he's got access to the God's Art, which can immediately kill my creature. He's got access to spells in his hand, which can immediately kill my creature. I was just trying to do a kind of a finishing play here. So I'm going to pump it up with Reflect. In response, he just space-time anomalies her. He takes 500 damage and then just swings in for lethal. So we're going to move into game 2. So with game 2, guys, we obviously I'm going to be on the play this time. It was pretty much a similar situation to how it worked. The only difference being at Illinois, I actually had won game 1. So game 1 this time definitely played out better in Alex's favor, not seeing any of my necromancies or anything else to kind of combat his slow start. So he decides to keep that Blessed Holy Wolf. 1 orb up. Get a Ruler's Memoria. Out comes the Barrier. And I filter with Reflect. We're having a goofy time. Alex is telling me that he's like, oh man, I'm so glad I held on to the Blessed Holy Wolf, because we're just kind of goofing around. He decided to hold on because he expected me to have a turn 1 barrier. He didn't have a play for his first turn, unfortunately, with that Scorn. Get my Apollo Sphere. Out comes Lancelot. 600 damage. I decided to make 800 damage at his face. Can't stop it, so 32. So pretty strong start. Again, wish I had, something like Guinevere Necromancy. None of that happened for me. He got the Levitine out. He has access to space-time anomaly now, which can be pretty helpful for him. He's thinking about what he wants to do here. Unfortunately, he can't play the... he's going to go ahead. He can't play the Blessed Holy Wolf yet, so I'm going to play Soul Hunt. In response, I'm going to bounce my Lancelot back to my hand and then discard the Flame Sprite. So essentially, his Soul Hunt hits my Flame Sprite and Apollo Sphere rather than my Lancelot and Flame Sprite. I had a counter going into my turn. Lancelot's going to come out. Another 800 to his face, down to 24. And then I'm going to play Rook Egg and pass. He's going to ship a card to the bottom before he draws with Hydromonica by paying 1. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable here. I've got him down to almost half health. I've got a Rook Egg to be able to support myself in case he plays another Soul Hunt. Still don't have any necromancies, which kind of sucks, but it also hasn't jammed a barrier or anything, or a Hera, and so I'm saving myself with the orb, being able to generate those. Just gonna go ahead and Dark Purge the Lancelot, just get it out of the way. He wants to do that Dark Purge now rather than later, because if he does it later, then I can still keep my Lancelot around by pumping it on my turn with Reflect. Deciding what I want to filter off here. Go ahead and jam a second Barrier of Shadows. In response, he's going to pay 1 to ship a card to the bottom. So now he has to pay 2. Out comes the Horn of the Sacred Beast. And I'm going to go ahead and flip with Reflect and pass the turn. So at this point, I've got lots of counters. I've got an Orb. I've got 2 Barrier of Shadows and a no hand. So any Scorns that he has in his hand are pretty worthless. Soul Hunt would also be pretty bad for him because I'd get a card out of it. Unless he does Soul Hunt Scorn. But I can cancel the Scorn with Reflect. And I've got 2 Barriers of Shadows, which makes me feel pretty comfortable. Now he plays that Blessed Holy Wolf to pop one of the barriers, because he finally has some light will from that Ruler's Memoria. I'm go ahead and search with Reflect at the end of the turn and flip back. Honestly, I feel like I should grab Gwen here. In hindsight, grabbing Gwen would allow me to do a lot more, but he does have removal spells, so there's no real way for me to save Gwen if he tries to play something like a Dark Purge or something else like that during my turn, so it could potentially become a wasted card, which is why I just decided to go straight for the Lance. Rookeg right now is kind of my answer to things like Lucifer or Soul Hunt. It's kind of my free sacked card to go for, which is very important in this matchup. A lot of times when I was kind of practicing for it or playing against dark decks, having a Rook Egg when they have access to those kind of things was very important. So we pay 2 to play Lancelot, swing at his face, the trigger targeting Blessed Holy Wolf. No pumps or anything like that. So he goes to block. He's gonna go ahead and Dark Purge. Then I realize, wait, hold on, I can just play another one from my hand. I'll go at his face for 6. I could have go at his face for 8. I honestly could have pumped up the Lancelot in response, but that wouldn't have been enough. Like, the Blessed Holy Wolf would have still just killed the Lancelot outright, so it really didn't make sense to let it happen at that point. But so instead I just played the second Lancelot in my hand and pumped that one and swung in for 800 damage at Alex's face, so pushing me even closer to being able to get that lethal in. But again, we're reaching that time where Reflect Refrain Necrolance hasn't closed the deal yet, and so Alex is going to have a lot more access to a lot of his tricks, and again, with no necromancies, this has been a very rough game. Very rough draws from my side of the board. Looking like I have the potential here to definitely run out of steam, which is not a good thing. So he's gonna go ahead and pass to me. Gonna add a counter, go up to 6 counters. Cover. Play another orb, which makes me feel pretty good here. Going into combat, I'm gonna go 6 at his face. He's gonna go ahead and block. Give himself the this is a big play for him. So he uses Kaguya's Premonition to pump it up, and then it'll save it, and then it'll take a ton of boost because he awakened it. I'm gonna pump Lancelot so that I don't lose my Lancelot. And then I'm gonna go ahead and flip over with Reflect. So I can still bounce that Blessed Holy Wolf. That's not any kind of trouble because of the fact that I'll be able to, you know, if it really becomes a problem, I can just bounce it back and still have a lot of other plays. I want to keep that Lancelot on board for as long as possible because next turn I can pump it up to a grand before my upkeep, which is really nice. So he's thinking here about how he wants to manage this. He knows he's got a Barrier Shadows, but he also knows that I have the Horn of the Sacred Beast. So this becomes a problem for him in terms of flipping. He's going to try to get that Horn of the Sacred Beast off the board first, or at least be able to get around it. So he's going to go ahead and tap for Stone this turn, hitting that third Black Moon's Memoria. He's going to swing at the Lancelot. I'm going to block with the Rook Egg. I get to search for something. He's really low life, so I could be searching for Lancelots, but I decided to go ahead and go for a Priscia at this point. Because he's so low, I feel like, you know, I'm being able to like pump up the Lancelot or bounce stuff, stay on Reflect and bounce stuff, or refrain on bounce stuff so that Lancelot goes through, then being able to potentially give flying to Priscia or put him down to where he's just in essentially thunder range, and then Priscia gets cast and I win. My only problem is I didn't expect this next play from Landon, which is to play Lucifer. Also, I totally should have just bounced my own Lancelot at this point. Like, that made the most sense, because I could have easily still had lots of advantage at this point. But I actually let him sacrifice it, which was definitely a mistake, I think, in my part. Bouncing my own Lancelot to save it, I think would have been just fine, because I still would have had way fewer counters, or I still would have had the Lancelot and a Priscia in my hand to be able to deal with stuff, and I could have stayed on Refrain and still made lots of really good plays happen next turn. And it only would have cost me 2 counters instead of now searching and costing me a lot more. Grab a Necromancy. Finally seeing a Necromancy, like the first one I've seen all game. I don't have to reveal it, I know, but it was late and both Alex and I were a little punchy at this point. He had been playing in the HEP all day, or sorry, the Gen Con Championship all day, and I had been working at the Force of Will booth all day, so we finally managed to meet up. So I was not flipping back to Reflect. I wanted to stay on Refrain. Caught that myself as well. Out comes the Flame King Shout that deals some extra damage, and then the Priscia. I don't really know why I played the Flame King Shout. That kind of didn't really make much sense to me looking back at it. Priscia was already going to be able to kill pretty much anything with the Necromancy. Can trade with the Lucifer if he goes to block. So Flame King Shout was entirely unnecessary in this call. So we're going to swing at his face for 9. Attempt to get that damage in there. He's going to go ahead and block and first strike it. Well, he's thinking about it. He's thinking about whether or not he wants to block. Misplays. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and block. So first strike's gonna get to go through. During the upkeep, he's gonna pay the 2 that he needs to ship a card to the top. We're gonna recover. This is another moment of where shortcutting gets a little chaotic, and I'll kind of explain. So he's trying to calculate. He has that second Hydromonica in his hand. He's gonna go ahead and play it, and then he kind of starts to move a little bit fast with the judgment and everything else, and like me being able to ship and do everything else. But we kind of when we're moving so fast, we totally forgot. I totally forgot that I could have canceled the Hydromonica, and so we're again with the kind of chill nature of it all, and you know Alex being a good sport, he's like, oh no, you totally could cancel that after I pointed out, and so we go ahead and let that go back. So we go back a little bit. So Celestial Wing Seraphs is still on top. I still have the horn. I canceled the Hydromonica, so he's deciding whether or not he wants to flip at this point. He knows there's Celestial Wing Seraph on top of his deck. Now he's got to try to get rid of it because he doesn't want to draw into it. He's going to play Uther to try to kill my Prisia. And in response to that, since I know that he still can't do Judgment this turn, then I'm going to shuffle his deck back in so that Uther can't do anything. Try to see if he wants to do something before it goes away. So I also make another big mistake here, and I'll explain kind of what that is here in just a second when he goes to combat. This is me not keeping track of will, and it's my own fault. And again, I've not played this deck in a while, he hasn't played this deck in a while, and we're both kind of really punchy after the end of a long day. So he goes to swing into my Prisia. I could have just as easily recovered and bounced that Blessed Holy Wolf back to his hand, and then next turn like pushed for like absolute lethal. That was my huge mistake. I could have easily just flipped back, pumped up Prisia to being 1100 damage, and given her flying, and then just gone in. But instead I just let him die and take the 1100 damage. This just goes to show that I was not playing in my A game. I think both of us were kind of a little off that day, trying to decide how I want to use my orbs in response to him playing a Barrier of Shadows. Go ahead and search and then add a counter back on and then flip back. So I'll be at 1 counter after a search. I grab another Prisia. Again, I don't have to reveal, but tiredness does take over when you're recording sometimes. So this is definitely a classic case of me definitely running out of steam with Necrolance and not playing as optimally as I could. Like I said, I could have easily bounced that Blessed Holy Wolf back to his hand, keeping my Prisia, and then been able to flip back and do all kinds of stuff and search for the second Prisia or something like that, and essentially be able to cast Double Thunder after swinging in the air at his face, and it would have been pretty good. So he sees I have 1 Necromancy there in the grave. So passes the turn here. draw. Tap for stone, which was also a mistake. Could have flipped it back over to reflect really easily. Play Brizia, get the Necromancy. In response, he just Dark Purges it. So it takes -6. He takes 500 damage, putting him down to 600. Out comes the Rook Egg. Nothing really I can do at that point other than just sit. And the problem is I only run 2 Brizia because I didn't change the deck at all from when I ran it at Illinois. So the I'm seeing what I wanted to filter into. Oh, yeah, so I still have the Rook Egg out. I didn't change the list at all, and so I didn't. The one change I wanted to make to the list was playing a 3rd Brizia in the main, and I was not. And I didn't even play the 3rd one in the side. And I was trying to be an honest player and not make any changes, knowing that it would help, even though I knew it would help in the matchup, and I knew I was going to be playing it. But I'm all out of Brizzias. I'm all out of the Necromancy. The Necromancy is in the grave, and so thankfully that Rook Egg is going to be able to help get me what I need and keep me alive for a bit. But Blandon is sitting on all kinds of options for being able to do stuff. He can't really stack with Shion, which I do have the advantage here. He's out of Hydromonicas, but he has way more cards in his hand than I do at 0 to 2, and he's got a lot more board presence, and he runs discard packages. So there's a potential that he's been holding onto a Scorn or a Soul Hunt or something like that to be able to mess with me, to mess with my plays. And I don't have a Levitine or anything, so there he goes. He just plays Lucifer, sacrifices. I have to sacrifice my my Rook Egg for that. And I imagine there's some kind of discard card in his hand at this point. So he's really just kind of sealing it in that he's going to get ahead in the terms of advantage. It's very hard, like I said. It's definitely running out of steam is the problem with Necrolance. So he's going to swing for 800 and then 1200. Oh, he's deciding whether or not he wants to swing with the 12. But definitely the 800, and I have no way to stop it. And then he just plays Soul Hunt, makes me discard to Lancelot and loses his own. So he's got, both have 0 cards in our hand, but he's got a flyer, a lifelink, and a lot more board presence, and he calls for another stone, whereas I have nothing in my hand. So I'm going to draw, I'm going to add some counters, pay 1 to add a counter, and then I'm going to filter, see if I get into anything. Finally, in my hand, you see there, for a split second, I have Guinevere Necromancy, which is kind of like my deck just insulting me. And so I just play the Gwen and just concede. So thank you to Outerworld and Blandon for, Alex Blandon, for being willing to sit down and have this kind of fun exhibition rematch with me. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and check out Outerworld's channel for the lists. And until next time, guys, this is DMO73, signing off.